The flu season is upon us, and I believe we have Delthia Ricks with us on the phone. Hello, Delthia.
I am here indeed.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. No flu, I'm guessing, right?
No flu.
So, here we go again. What's going on with the flu this season?
Well, it's hard to tell, at least here so far, because it's very, very early. October is usually considered the beginning of the flu season, but it doesn't peak here until later in the winter, around late January, early February, and that's when you see more cases. But scientists and flu trackers who kind of get a bead on what's going on around the world take a look at what's going on in the southern hemisphere, in other words, below the equator, to get a sense of what might happen here later on. Their flu season peaks in August. And so far, it seems that the flu season there was mild to moderate. I'm certain the data is still being collected, but it appeared to be mild to moderate this year.
Does that usually correlate?
Yeah, and it did last year. I'm certain you recall that last year we had one of the worst flu seasons on record. 80,000 people died in the United States alone. 200 of those deaths were children. And it was because for two reasons. There was a very nasty A strain of flu, and the vaccine wasn't a great match. So those were two problems. But scientists knew before it even happened here that this flu season would be somewhat nasty because of the situation in Australia and elsewhere in the southern hemisphere. Australia had a record number of deaths.
Right. Well, how do they go about picking which strain of flu they're going to attack? It's
the ones that are causing the most trouble in certain parts of the world. There are actually two different types of vaccines, and there are a number of different kinds of vaccines, but there's a northern hemisphere vaccine and a southern hemisphere vaccine.
Wow.
And what they look at are the strains that are causing the most trouble in those parts of the world in the previous season, and those become the strains that are put into the vaccine for the current flu season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but does it work?
Well, it works. It works well enough because they're able to get about a 65% efficacy in the vaccine each year. It wasn't that high, of course, last year because the vaccine and the circulating strain turned out to be a mismatch. So that was a problem. That was a part of the reason why last year's flu season was so problematic.
Right. It just seems to be every time this comes along, we have this issue of the medical community trying to convince people to get the flu shot. Well, what do you think their reticence is attributed to?
The reticence of the medical community?
No, people to get the flu shot.
Oh, the population at large. There are a lot of myths out there. There's also a large community of anti-vaccine people who just don't want vaccines of any kind.
Right.
But studies have shown that even if you have been vaccinated and are unfortunate enough to get the flu anyway, that you have a lesser bout with the flu. In other words, it doesn't make you as sick.
Right, but that's
the time the length of time you have it is much shorter as well.
Well, I got to be honest. That strikes me as spin, not science.
Now, I'm sorry, it's science, not spin.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, how can you tell? How can they prove it one way or the other?
Well, they have people who've been vaccinated tend to be it's not always that someone catches the flu because they've been vaccinated.
No, but that happens too. I don't think that helps.
Well, sometimes it's not even the flu, because the flu circulates at the same time of year as about a half dozen other respiratory viruses.
Very true. Yeah.
So you may not be able to discern which virus you've gotten. Have you gotten the flu, or did you get para-influenza virus, or did you get respiratory syncytial virus? Those are all circulating at the same time and cause very similar symptoms.
Oh, and I think to the layman, that's one of the other things that helps. What can I say? Gum up the whole idea is we're dealing with more than the flu. But during flu season, anybody that's sick has the flu.
well, yeah, that's what most people think. But there are a lot of things circulating out there, and they're all fellow travelers in the viral world. They're all out there at the same time.
Well, no, there's another question, and it just occurred to me that if there are this many, let's just say there's 10 bugs out there during the season, does getting the flu shot help if you catch one of those other bugs, or is your immune system already taking a bang because you took the flu shot? Well, and then you get another germ.
Well, the flu is the one that's in greatest abundance. And the problem with it is that if you're older, or you have weak immunity, or you may just be a healthy person who is unfortunate enough to have gotten really sick with it, it can lead to pneumonia. And that's a very tough situation, and you may wind up in the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
So that should be number one on your checklist as to why a flu shot's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It still seems that there seems to be a big wave of resistance. I mean, the anecdotal evidence out there is get the flu shot and get the flu. Don't get the flu shot, and you probably got a better chance. That's the anecdote. That's what the man on the street would, just shooting from the hip would say.
Well, there's also the idea of just being a good Samaritan, because the more people
guilt, I don't think guilt is going to do it. I don't think guilt is going to do it.
No, it's not guilt at all. The more people who are vaccinated, you provide herd immunity, and you protect those who may not have gotten a flu shot. If you lessen.
But then people say, "Okay, I'll be the one that doesn't get it. The rest of you get it."
Well, you may be lucky enough to be protected by the herd. Herd immunity means, the more people who are protected, the fewer there are to pass the flu around.
Right.
So those who haven't gotten it are protected not because, they're just healthier. They didn't get it because there's less flu in circulation. Because the herd has protected you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is what the science says. It just seems to me that every time the flu season comes around, we do this dance. People saying they're going to get it, people saying they're not. The CDC and all the medical community trying to convince us to get it, and people saying I never got the flu, so no, I'm not going to get it.
Oh, well.
No, I'm just I don't know what the answer is. What is the answer? Because I think it comes down to trust, and that would be for us to trust the CDC, and I don't think that's happening. And I think the CDC has some other problems to come out and tell us to do something. If they're not trustworthy, then who do we listen to?
Well, I would never go that far to say the CDC isn't trustworthy.
Well, the CDC is the same group that won't declare Lyme disease a long-term disease. It's not covered by insurance. There are thousands of people in this country who are really suffering from that, and the CDC refuses to move. That's that same organization that's telling me I should get a flu shot.
Well, there's debate about the term "quote-unquote" chronic Lyme, but that's another issue entirely.
It is, but it's the same organization.
That's a bacterial disease. We're talking about different animals.
Well, nevertheless, people are hurting and they're doing nothing about it. That's the issue. You can talk about whatever germ you want. I think the issue is with trust, with the people telling us we should do this. I think that's a big part of it.
Well, it's not as if someone's forcing you to do it. You have
we're on the edge. We're on the edge.
No, it's not that far. You can choose not to do it.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, you're at risk of pneumonia and other problems. It's a nasty bug.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, look, I'm a case in point. I've never gotten a flu vaccine. I've also never gotten the flu.
Well, I'm assuming you live on Long Island, and there's a number of people who, thousands of people get it. So you're protected by the people who are getting the flu shot, who are providing herd immunity, which protects you.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay. I mean, I believe you, but the fact remains I've never gotten the shot and I've never gotten the flu. If that's the reason, okay, that's a good reason as any.
That means your neighbors are helping you out.
Well, good. I shovel their walk during the snowstorm, so they did that for me. That's great.
And your colleagues at work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a shame that we dance around this thing. Every time the flu season comes up, we have comparable conversations. People, I'm not gonna. It would be nice.
I don't think it should be that difficult.
I know, but it is. But it is.
But it's an intervention that takes a few seconds, and you provide protection for yourself and protection for others around you who have not gotten the shot.
Yep. Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. And we'll get to. I mean, we'll definitely get to talk again because this is going to play out, and we're going to see.
Yeah, you know what? We should talk about Lyme disease.
Yes, I'd love to.
And ticks, because even though it's colder, I do know that the ticks may be going away, but people who've been bitten will still be sick. So we should talk about Lyme disease.
I personally know someone who's had undiagnosed Lyme disease for 13 years. I can't believe what they went through. I cannot believe it. She couldn't even find a doctor to identify Lyme disease because the CDC...
But who diagnosed it?
Well, she finally went to a specialist somewhere in Tennessee she had to travel to. She's definitely got Lyme. I don't know what else, but she also had 12 or 13 other things on top of that. Those other
caused by ticks?
Bacteria that ticks are carrying now. Yeah, there were 17 other maladies besides Lyme disease you can get from a deer tick.
Well, I don't know. Not 17.
Oh, that's the last thing I read. There were
not
at least
17.
that many.
Okay.
I mean, okay, up in the air. I'm not the doctor. You're the investigator. I trust what you're saying. That's what you found.
All right.
But it is. These are big issues, and I think a lot of them would be solved if we had more trust in people who were telling us these things.
Not that. I think you would have more trust if there was a vaccine for Lyme. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. Well, Delthia, I thank you very much for coming on the show and talking to us about this.
You are quite welcome, and thank you.
And as it plays out, I hope we get to talk again, and we can kick it around, see what the
Lyme
results
disease.
were. Yeah.
Lyme disease is the next topic.
Okay, great. I'll put it on my calendar.
All right, thank you.
You take care. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. And we want to thank Delthia for calling in, and we want to thank Newsday for giving us access to all the folks who write these stories and let us know what's going on.